Hello and welcome to the Pro Detailer podcast. Today, as ever, we have a very special guest. Today we're joined by none other than Mr. Jon of Delieu. Hello.
Jon Delieu?
We also have Ian.
Just finishing my tea, hang on.
And that new sound effect works really well. And Jon, as everyone will know, is Mr. Forensic Detailing Channel on YouTube. He has been YouTubing properly, hardcore YouTubing for sort of 5-6 years now.
Yeah.
Our first return guest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fool.
And you're up to 240,000 subs.
We're getting there.
Which is amazing, nearly a quarter of a million.
That is scary, actually. I think it was probably about 100,000 last time I saw it.
It was.
Yeah. So it grows exponentially, this YouTube thing, I think.
Grows how, sorry?
Exponentially. Hopefully.
And what we're going to be talking about, we've got lots of exciting things to talk about today, but we're going to be talking about the whole thing. And one thing we have in common, which is reviewing products, and us as the magazine, you as the YouTube channel, the challenges, the fun, the excitement, the satisfaction,
The bodies.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting thing. This is what I live and breathe. I was telling you earlier on, that's what is going through my head all the time, reviewing products, and it is difficult, and I'm really looking forward to delving in to some of those difficulties,
those topics, and dealing with it, and the politics. So we're going to touch on that, and then in part 2 of the podcast, we're going to be talking about the Graphene Megatest that we're doing for issue 16.
Yeah.
And we're doing lots of blind testing, and Jon is one of our blind testers.
Yeah, this is one of the best. I've been involved with millions of these tests over the years. This is one of the best because I'm worried. I'm worried that I'm going to look like a right idiot and saying this is this one, and getting it totally wrong. And
You're in good company of idiots here.
Yes.
We have an association.
And the megatest itself, it's not all about identifying the wax. It's just it's blind for the sake of it. But it will be intriguing to see who gets it right and who gets it wrong.
Yeah.
And you've already made some early assessments.
Yeah, they could be wrong.
Yeah.
They could be wrong. I'm looking forward to talking about that as well because this hasn't been done before. There's all this opinion, like we were talking about earlier on. There is a lot of opinion around technology and these new materials that are used in waxes. And this will give you the first instance of whether people can actually tell the difference without any bias, because it's completely blind, it's completely done with good intent, and I can't wait to see when all the results are in.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. And then we're also going to talk about buzzwords, and it kind of links nicely with the Carnuba and things like S02 and now Graphene, and we're just natter about that. And then we have the 10 quick-fire questions. So action-packed. But let's cycle back and reviewing products. So, Jon, what platform was the first review that you ever did on? Was it on YouTube?
That's a good.
Was it Vimeo?
That's a real curveball. It was a written review, I think, for the Detailing Addicts review Facebook group.
Wow.
They had a different group just for reviews, and people would plonk them in, and I plonked a couple of reviews in. I think it was for microfiber cloths, because I went and bought a load of cloths from the rag company.
Back in those
those
days, yeah.
green cloths, and I thought they were good and they were good price, and I put it in there. And then I did a review for a company called Auto Perfect.
With a K.
Perfect.
Yeah,
with a K, yeah.
and that's still going, and that was back in the day. And then I thought I'll video some and put them on YouTube, and that's when it all kind of started for me. Because
And now you're in a BMW M4 CS.
well, yeah. Although I don't know, that's just probably
It wasn't that easy.
It's hindered me getting it. I think I could have got it quicker other ways. But yeah, I've been doing it for 6 years, and I've learned a lot about how to do it, and YouTube and social media and how it all works. And I went in completely green, the greenest YouTuber ever, doing it all wrong, doing 45-minute to an hour videos.
Your early movies were, and I call them movies because they were feature lengths.
Yeah, they were rubbish.
Well, no. The thing is that they'd obviously set a foundation, because there were people who watched them, including me, watched them right the way through. And they were very, very long. But I think the early adopters got to know you, Jon. And I think one of the unique side, well, not, every YouTuber's got a personality per se, but I think yours is more there's more empathy because
I was wooden though. I was wooden as well as green.
there's a bit of that, but those nerves made you look human in a way that the dynamic RC, gobshites that do a lot of them, you kind of think, oh, he's a bit of a dick, isn't he? Whereas with you, it's like, oh, you could be living next door.
Yeah, I mean, I was dull as dishwater when I started, and I just fired up the camera, and I was very nervous. So I just used to try and get through the bit of camera. But I was really addicted to detailing at that point. I was really into it. I loved it, and it was discovering this scene, this detailing scene, which, we all know, and what it can offer you, because apart from the detailing scene, it was going down to your local Halfords and, they got some good stuff, but there's stuff within the scene that's not in Halfords, which is awesome. And one of the first things I wanted to do on my channel is try and grab all of that stuff that the scene was offering, put it all in videos and show people it, because my thoughts on what wash mitts you could use to wash your car was you could use a sponge, or you can use like what's those noodles?
Noodle mitt.
Yeah, and that was about it. But then you discover the detailing scene. You got brands with sheep
and microfiber.
Yeah, microfiber madness. This cool pad. You got like the Wookiee fist, which was like this giant great thing. You've got like the Car Pro one, which was all shaggy, and they were all different. You had the Duca one, real high quality one, and then suddenly. People were also discovering this scene through the videos and realising that there's all these other products that you can go and try, and that is what the detailing scene is all about.
And you've kind of grown with them. I've noticed there are a lot of people who are there in the early days, and they've literally progressed and developed as you have.
Yeah.
And it's just that journey, and it's something that we want to kind of cover is the art of reviewing a product. So with us, we talk a lot about this sort of thing, and we agree entirely about most things. But it's, for example, I find it very difficult to review a single product in isolation.
Yeah.
Particularly as there are very few rubbish products out there, and there are very few products that are 1,000% better than anything else in the market. So it's difficult if you're talking about, say, just for argument's sake, a glass cleaner.
Yeah.
All glass cleaners clean glass, so they kind of do it. Now, some are smearier than others, some are better at cleaning certain things, some smell nice, some knock you for six. But there's a limit to how much you can talk about if you haven't got a comparison.
Yeah.
The problem with the comparison is that when you're talking, when we do the mega tests, the way we do them, and we get criticised for this, but I think I think they're wrong, basically. There's no point telling people what not to buy. It's much more useful to know what to buy. Yeah. And so our tests are always, say if we've got 10 products, we'll talk about each product, what it claims, things that we can see, and anything positive that we find about it, and anything glaringly, like if it's not got the health and safety information, we'll give them a bollocking for that because there's no excuse. But then as we progress in the test, we'll have different criteria, and we'll say this is the best at that and product Y is best at something else. And then when it comes to the final, so to speak, the podium, we will focus on 1, 2, 3 products and say these are all great products. These are all the winners for different, horses for courses. We're not dragging stuff through the mud. We might just go quiet on something if it didn't really live up to it. But there's no point dragging through the mud. But from your point of view, you're saying how if you say everything's great when you're doing a single product or a small review, then people ain't going to watch.
Well, you'll slowly lose the one thing that you're supposed to be called. You're supposed to be called an influencer, but if you don't do your job, your influence won't be real. And when your influence goes because you're not doing your job, no one's going to be there to support you, and you'll have lost your credibility and everything you've built. So you have to review. You have to critique.
You have to make a polemic. You have to make things slightly controversial because that's what people want. They want a little bit of drama in it. Drama in detailing reviews, but
it is the word critique.
Yeah,
critique means that. You have to talk about things that things don't do well as things that do well. You don't ever want a review to sink a company. You don't want that. So you have to tread carefully, and also you have to be aware that most people, you know, all these brands know more about their product than you do because they've been involved in the...
Well, manufacturers do, not necessarily brands. We've had the odd situation where we've had companies... We had one regarding solvent content, and they said the product was solvent-free, and we were able to show that, no, it was water-based, but not solvent-free. But there are strategies that we've both learned. So, for example, I use the Good News Sandwich. Lovely packaging. Product is crap, but the label's really nice and pretty, and the price is good, and so you can mix things in there and do it in such a way
you have to do. You hear me on the channel talk about a balanced review. So if you can balance it, talk about positives and negatives, and I think you've done your job. You cannot win, by the way. You cannot win.
True.
I get criticised by people that watch for comparing prices. So one thing you'll see on Forensics Detailing reviews, I think all of them, don't quote me if you can find one without it, but I try to, when I first look at the product, I go and Google the price and try and find what the price of this product is. And then one simple thing I do is try and put about 4 or 5 other products there. So you can see where the product sits in the market. So the basic thing you know is how much you're paying. And I think, you know, you have to do that.
But again, there are challenges with this. So the first one, obviously, is concentration. You could have a product that is much more concentrated in the same price, therefore better value. But the other thing is the way these things are marketed. If you go for a mainstream product, say Megs or Autoglim, something like that, you can almost always find it on a discount website or on an offer. And so saying that product X is 15 quid, in a way, even though that's the MRSP, is unfair because everybody can pick it up for a tenner.
Yeah.
But then it works in other ways as well. When the manufacturers they put out a very expensive product and it looks stupidly expensive, but it's not just the concentration, it's how much you need to use. So we had with the last Megatest with tire dressings, everything was a liquid apart from Soft 99, which was a wax, and the wax I think was 250 mil, something like that, and we said maybe it's a roughly approximate to a 500 mil bottle, conveniently what everything else was, and therefore it was slightly above the rest of the price, not obscene, but it was slightly above, and the answer is actually, I reckon that tin would probably last 2 or 3 times as long as a 500 ml bottle. But how the hell do you tell that without getting, spending ages on it?
You're going into their cost per application, and that's something I try and do on the channel as well. But I also think sometimes it's just good to say, with certain products, this is how much it costs. This is what you get. I try and do conversions actually to price per litre a lot of time as well. But you're right, cost per application is a good thing. But there can be resistance even to doing that. Then there can be resistance to showing gloss data, which is something we could talk about for a long time. You know about this because you've got the same instrumentation that I've got.
We have the lovely row point, and we borrow other ones. We've got a darkness meter that we borrow occasionally.
I'm borrowing one of those as well. That's really good.
Row point really are very good at supporting us testers.
They are awesome, aren't they?
Yeah.
And to think we've got a company like that in the UK, and they're really, really nice to deal with.
And they're smashing it in terms of international and all the rest of it. And their tech is we are literally under NDA. We can't talk about what they're developing, and it is really serious stuff. The other side is how one weights an argument or weights a review, because we just talked about cost. Now, for some people, cost might be the first thing they think about, but actually, product quality. And to use an analogy here, is that if you were going to review a Rolls-Royce versus a Dacia Sandero, now, the Dacia Sandero is significantly cheaper than the Rolls-Royce, but they're different things. You're getting a quality. Yes, they're both 4-door saloons, but they do it differently. And so saying that the Sandero is better purely based on money is missing the point. And there's a risk with this, with some of the high-tech stuff.
There is, but a better analogy is you're reviewing a set of claw hammers rather than Dacia Sanderos or cars, because these are tools to do a relatively simple job. You've
obviously never seen me hammering something. Simple.
So I don't know.
3 thumbs this year.
I'm in favour of kind of keeping it quite simple, even though a lot of my reviews are kind of over the top almost for something that might be just something you use to clean something.
I think if normal people off the street said, you've spent 45 minutes talking about a glass cleaner, please get out of this lift, just in case it breaks down.
Well, I've talked about that as well. That was one of my fears when I started the channel, that it was just ridiculous, the detail we were going into, pardon the pun, on something very simple. But the thing I've learned is that there's people at home love this stuff, and they're more they're more obsessive about getting the right products for them than anything else. You know, any other cleaning chemicals, what they use to clean themselves inside, they don't care. But what goes on their car has to be the best.
Well, I call that Swiss vac syndrome, as in they have to. It's people buy it for all sorts of reasons, and it is lovely products. But there is an element of people who buy it because they go down the pub and say, "I just spent £1,000 on a car wax." Yeah. Frankly, I would get up and walk out of that pub at that point because I don't want to spend time with somebody who does that to do that.
Before I tried to sell him something.
Well, that's true. But that alludes, as you were saying, tools, to a really interesting point, which is it doesn't matter if the product is good or bad, it's how you use it. So I always say that I'd much prefer to have a good detailer with poor products than a poor detailer with good products. And this is the thing, both from a review point of view, I always like to put in the mitigation based on our testing, based on how we used it, and then we obviously follow the instructions and all the rest of it. And you get other people say, "Oh, that review did. If you actually use it at double concentration and upside down while butt naked, you'll find that it actually cleans your car better than if you follow the instructions." And you're sitting there and say, "Well, that's not what the man who gets it in the post, or woman who gets it in the post and reads the instructions and does." Exactly. So you're not testing it as intended. So it's always a challenge with people. To strike that balance. But at the same time, if we found product X and we found it was generally a pretty good shampoo, but we found that actually if you used it, for example, in warm water, just as an argument, that it had a certain enzyme in or something that was then really amazing, and that's a top tip, and I'm all for that. So if we're reviewing something, we find a clever way of using it, we'll mention it. But in terms of how we're rating this product, and it's the same we did on the tyre dressings. We had to dry some tyres with a hairdresser. We had to let one tyre cure for 24 hours.
Hairdryer.
Bonkers.
We don't dry him with a hairdresser.
He was an air gun.
Sharon, come in here and dry his tyre off for us.
Yeah, you're talking about the Jon hair dryer.
With their Q2 tyre.
Yeah, you have to dry it with the hairdryer. Or it recommends
you have to warm it up to 60 degrees or something.
Well, to avoid getting jumped on, you have to heat it beyond typical room temperature, about 5 times typical room temperature in this country. And actually, it was Q2.
I set my thermostat.
No, you like to boil yourself. Q2 tyre actually won the test, even though it was finicky in that respect, because overall we felt, if you follow the instructions and you can take the time to it, yes, it takes 4 times as long as it does slap on some silicone, but actually the result and durability and all the rest of it is worth it. So on balance,
really? That's interesting, because I can't remember. I can't remember if I used the hairdryer when I tested it, because it did say about it, but I'm not sure if it said you have to.
I think because we tried it with and without, and for the durability test we did it with, and it was it and CarPro and Soft 99 in that particular test were really good on the durability. And we I didn't say we screwed up the test, but we spent basically we were putting it on a car, going for a long trip, coming back, seeing which has lasted. Unfortunately, when we got back, we forgot to until we'd done another 250 miles. So it's basically a 1,000-mile test on products that generally don't last that long anyway. But no, there was Angelworks had some remaining as well. There were bits and bobs that we could spot.
Well, this is another really interesting thing, is that depending on what you want, it sounds like for you guys, you were looking at durability and Jon come up top and you thought it looks good, happy with it, it's the best overall winner. I suppose you could say bias is that durability isn't as important because, as I've said on the channel, I think no matter what you dress it, when a couple of weeks later of driving the car solidly, after you clean the car, you really need to dress the tyres to get the full detailing look. So then that changed the weighting of durability for me in my test. So we could have tested exactly the same products and come up with completely different results based on what we want.
Yeah, and I think it's important, what I suspect would be the case of result of good testing, is that we would each say, I'd say we had two tyre products. Yeah, we know that one is more durable than the other. We know one gives more gloss, one has an easier application and stuff like that. And then in terms of, we could still have different winners because we've simply prioritised properties. And from our point of view, it's interesting because we did test, ease of application and gloss, and we got all the meters out, we did all that side of things. And then based on all of those different metrics, we came to our conclusions. But it is where the priorities, and that's in fact one thing why we do have category wins, because we might have somebody there who wants that wet look. He wants it to look, and she wants to make it look amazing, just for that show. Yeah. Whereas there are other lazy people who might want something to last a long time, and again, is ease of cleaning is another bizarre topic. So we had some products in there, like Garotherapy, for example, which didn't have a huge darkening and all the rest of it, but if you do a couple of coats and the durability in it, it's literally a serum for the tyre. So then if you're looking for a product that lasts a long time and makes maintenance easier, it's going to be a stronger product than a Show Queen product.
Yeah, USPs. Yeah. And I suppose that's a really important point, is that you're going through and giving people results, and I do this as well. And people in the comments, but I don't care about price, or I don't care about durability, I don't care about looks. And I reply to them sometimes saying, well, that's why we've broken the test down into different sections, so you don't have to take the overall winner. If you care about ease of application, then pick the one that won that category. So, yeah, you do learn stuff as you go along as well. You learn stuff.
Look back on when we did the glaze Megatest, because you came along and did that with us, didn't you?
Yeah.
And we were sitting there putting all these glazes on, but we were coming up with fairly polarising preferences, because you wanted a glaze to do something specific for more what an enthusiast would probably look for in a glaze, whereas at the time James and myself were looking at it from a sort of professional and efficiency point of view, which is obviously our background, being, at least semi in my case, professional detailers, occasionally professional. So that's why, I mean, especially with this megatest that we're doing now, I think that's why it's going to be probably the most accurate testing we've done, because we're getting
I'd say the most
blind
realistic
opinions from everybody.
Yeah, accuracy, and again, it's the
It's
difference.
very easy to be in your own bubble with these things.
Yeah, it's also the terms, because you've got precision, you've got accuracy. That they all mean slightly different things. And I think, as a magazine, we started off as a kind of more professional leaning mag, but a long time ago we've much more moved into the kind of the enthusiast side. Again, the mag was an accident, the market was an accident, so we've kind of adapted. And it's interesting, the feedback we get from both parties is quite often different, particularly with things like compounds, because again, a professional will be using it in a different way, and their priorities are, how quick is this compound going to do the job that I need it to do? How long will it last?
It's interesting though, because you guys had spent a day or something, or some time doing some testing for that hand glaze. And you had a couple of products. You didn't tell me completely, but you showed me the roof of that yellow or green car.
The Renault 5.
Yeah, still for sale.
Still for sale.
Still for sale with a patchwork roof.
$3,000 buys it.
No longer patchwork.
Yeah, no, I machined that car actually. It's one of the machined that top to bottom.
It's just lowered the value. But we tested some test panels inside on the day I was up, and I think by the end of the day we'd agreed on. Well, there was one that was a clear winner of the test panel thing, and it had also done really well in your previous testing, and you were really... I'm not sure if it was the overall winner. We can talk about it. It was the Nanolex one, wasn't it? The Nanolex product
was the overall winner, yeah.
Was it the overall winner? That was a really impressive product. And that's one of the reasons I love doing these tests, because you had about 70 odd products in this test, or
20, 28, 30, I think.
It felt like 70.
Yeah, there are a lot.
And you learn stuff.
Yeah.
You learn. And we also learned in that test, when we had them all linked out in how much they cost, we could see a clear pattern, that the products all towards the top of price were all consistently performing better, with I think one exception in that top price category. It was average.
Yeah.
And then the cheaper ones, some of them were a bit better than their price would suggest, but generally the ones down in the cheap category weren't as good.
Yeah, and the mid-range, there was a clear mid-range as well.
Yeah, and they were mid-range on price and performance, but some in the mid-range were a bit better than you think. And it's stuff like that has been absolutely invaluable for me, and stuff like the wash mitt test that you guys did. That, being involved in that test, I now only use noodles. I went from using microfiber pads to now looking for the perfect noodle, because seeing the difference with your eyes. And we've done these tests over the years, for the last 6 years, with every category of product virtually, and you learn a little bit.
Do you now use exclusively Dr. Sheraton leather wipes on your interior?
No.
So they're not all winners.
No, but they're all right though, aren't they?
Well, they
For
do.
in a very specific set of circumstances.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
If those circumstances suit you, then great.
Yeah.
They're £1.50 at Tesco.
Yeah, I mean,
Lord Sheraton, not Doctor.
that was
I
one
said
of
Lord
our
Sheraton.
Oh, okay.
That was one of our few shock results, that was, because I thought these were just like wet wipes that have just got soap in them and whatever. But they are made by a company that knows what they're doing. They've got beeswax in them. You rub it over your leather and it protects it from friction wear. They cost virtually nothing and you can stick them in your glove box. And that's what the reviews should also do. They should throw wild cards in there like that are not expected. That's going back to my glass cleaner. I'm going to stick a cheap one in there and just see if the wild card can
Star Drops vinegar. Just get a bottle of Star Drops vinegar.
Well, this is another thing. I try not to put homebrew stuff in there. In the Megatests, or my equivalent to them. I don't know why though, but I thought about that. Should I put my homebrew glass thing? And then I thought, what's the point?
Well, what if it wins? Terribly awkward.
Well, it might do. Yeah, it might win because of the price.
Invest.
And what will happen is people can't buy that anyway, and most don't want to go and mix it. They're not so into detail, and they want to go and mix up their own formulations and stuff. So. And I'll just get stick because I'll say I'm putting this as the winner. Well, it's your product. You're going to say that, and it's costs 50p a litre or whatever I'm raving about.
Well, that brings us on to dealing with manufacturers as well, because manufacturers, we'll touch on it briefly. There are some, and we always compare notes in this. So some we work with or have worked with and all the rest of it. Some are brilliant. They send you the products on time. They send you in advance when a new product's coming out. They get in touch and they do it, and so you can actually time things. They don't realise there's a process to doing a magazine or a video series and stuff like that. But also how they take criticism, and some are brilliant. They just take it on the chin. They actually, they'll ask, how can we improve this? And that's what you want. And then you get the others who will send you products with the expectation it'll win everything and it's the best of everything and you're going to sing your praises for it. And you used the word earlier, influencer. For me, it's a slightly dirty word, and it's been done by the people who try to screw over Litchfield when buying parts. Parts. Is this mercenary? Pay me money and I'll say nice things to you. To my followers is almost not strong enough. Is my groupies. Whereas disciples. Actually, what disciples? Yes, very biblical. What you and I focus on or want is to you're talking about maintaining that audience and maintaining the trust, and the way you could do that is not by just pay per shot, so to speak. You've
got to be prepared to take some flack, unfortunately. So that's just part of it. I learnt 6 years ago quite quickly that whenever you're negative, it doesn't benefit you as a channel. It seems to create animosity towards you straight away. If I didn't know how to review products, so I would start, and we talked about this, is I would rank in a review from 1st to 16th or whatever, if I had 16 products in there. The product that comes last, and I'm doing a countdown from 16th to 5th, I'm putting the nail in the coffin on that product. Even as a reviewer with 1,000 subscribers, and only maybe 2,000 people watch the video, enough people watch it to say that product's rubbish when it's next talked about because they've watched the thing, and you influence that and you kill it. So I learned not to do that straight away. Don't do that. Although I'm thinking I have done that since, but I try not to do that.
Only special cases where they're truly awful.
Well, I try to sometimes do points when I'm comparing stuff, and then at the end I'll say the one with the highest points was this, the next one was this, the next one's with this.
But they argue about points when you're doing that kind of cumulative system. We've tried that in the past.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
And also quite often you toss up the points, and you have and basically an all-rounder wins.
Yeah,
and you sit there and think, but if I was sat there, I would have gone. I would have got that car, not that car, even though that one's better, more fuel efficient.
You're absolutely right. And I don't always follow. I've done a test and all comprehensive tests with all these, and here's the winner. And then I'm using a different product because I like it more. And I thought, shouldn't this one be the winner? That confuses I confuse myself as well.
Well, going back to your Dacia Sandero versus your Rolls Royce comparison, if you have comparisons like a number of cup holders or how cleanable is the fabric seats, then you're going to be buying a Sandero at the end of the day. Yeah. If you add in things that the Rolls Royce is going to be good at, then the Rolls Royce is going to come out on top. If you have a bit of everything, you're going to end up with a BMW.
Yeah, which is just a bit.
That's a good time to end.
Hang on a minute.
So we are going to take a little pause, and we will be back very shortly. I hope you've been enjoying this podcast. I just wanted to take a minute to tell you about a new book that myself and Ian have been putting together. It is called Hand Wash Only. It's 144 pages, A5 format, hardback. It is packed with pictures and diagrams and top tips and how-to guides, and essentially covers everything in detailing in enough detail for pretty much any enthusiast and many a professional. It is there to guide you through from the very first pre-wash right the way to all the different LSP options, including lots of stuff on interior as well, and stain removal and things like that. It's priced at $12.95 and is available on the Pro Detailer Magazine website at www.prodetailermagazine.com. Now, back to the podcast. And we're back. So, in the second part of this lovely podcast with the one and only Jon Delieu, is the megatests that we're doing. So, just to kind of read everybody in and put everyone in the loop, we are testing graphene, but we're also testing SiO2. And we've been investigating graphene in issue 14, and for issue 15 we are looking specifically at graphene in waxes, because this is something that suits the megatest and suits what we're doing. So we've worked with Applied Graphene Materials and with Angel Wax, John Hogg, and with various other parties, and we have created 3 waxes that look, smell, feel, taste the same. One is a conventional, in brackets, organic wax.
Sorry. For the benefit of the tape, don't taste your wax.
Yeah. I did earlier. There is actually a photo on social media of me licking it, and my tongue is still a little bit numb.
It's shiny though.
It's real shiny in the beading, baby. And that's fine.
It's going like Venom. The graphene's actually taking over.
Yeah, slight headache. And then one is exactly the same base, so same solvent, same organic wax content and all the rest of it, but it's got the addition of SiO2, and then one with the addition of graphene. And we invited young John over here as one of the testers. So we've got about 15 testers around the world. We've got one in Holland, one in Japan, one in America, one in Switzerland, and then the rest in the UK at the moment. And they're each getting 2 of these 3 waxes, but they don't know which 2 they've got. And we've asked them to fill in report cards and to test it not just on cars or panels, but to be creative, think of some new stuff. So the guys at, for example, the Speed 6 podcast have got it each, and hopefully they're going to come up with some like kind of interesting out the blue way of testing. We've got Paul Dolden, we've got Specky McSporran, and loads of others. So
Luke Tranquility Base as well.
Yeah, Luke McCann, yeah. And with you, John, because you're special and you've been testing with us for years,
thank you.
We've given you all 3 waxes.
I know. And I just wanted to say, this is important. You can cut this out if I can't say this, but you're not telling them what of the waxes you've sent, and you could theoretically send them 2 of the same.
Yes.
Or,
It's devious, isn't it?
and that I'm glad that I've got all 3 here, because...
Well, hang on.
But
You think all 3 of those are different?
Well, I'm just suddenly thinking, have I got 3 that are the same? It's a tough
It's
one.
only your reputation on the line, John.
Yeah,
Yeah, nothing important.
Yeah.
Well, look, I think this is one of the best mega tests you guys have done. This is a real stonker. This is a good one. And I think, as I've said to you, I think this is a tough one. And I'm really interested to see if anyone can get this right. And if they do get it right, I want to know how they've deduced it. Because just from the quick look I've had, there are some differences.
There are differences, but John, the focus is not on guessing which one is which. It's which one is the best in your opinion, and then and the properties that they exhibit, and say, well, maybe wax X is good for beading, wax Y is more durable, and wax Z is the easier to apply.
Yeah, but that all starts from looking at the characteristics.
Yes,
looking at slickness, looking at application. There's no massive differences in application, so as far as I can see. Everyone's going to go through this process. There seems to be a little bit of difference on slickness. One seems grippier than the others, and there's definitely a little bit of difference in hydrophobicity. My word for hydrophobicity. And that's really important, because that suggests that even if you're a complete, say, graphene skeptic, if the graphene infused wax has more hydrophobicity and more slickness than one without anything in it, then you've got some
And if everyone
undisputable
concurs.
data. Yeah, if there's that pattern, then you've got some undisputed data that's never been produced before that people at home can actually spot, and professionals, a difference between these products. And I thought the differences would be so subtle you wouldn't be able to spot them. But
You've already spotted quite a few.
well, possibly, yeah. But then these could be the same wax.
Oh, you think there's wax in there?
Yeah.
The other element is that because they're going over the world and lots of people, different people are testing at different times, obviously their bias is removed.
Yeah.
But it might be that some are applying it. So we did it on a aluminium painted and cleared panel, which wasn't, it was prepped and cleaned and deconned, but it wasn't machined. And it's done inside at approximately 16 degrees, whereas you might get some people applying it outside when it's 2 degrees, and maybe one of the waxes will be much more different or easier, harder than the others in those conditions. Equally,
Possibly.
somebody might apply them to a daily driver and they might be a sales rep and they're doing 100k, whereas other people might just be a show queen that's sat in the garage, and so then they may or may not notice the difference.
Yeah, and the paint's so good you can't really tell visually or anything like that. But one question I've got for you, both of you, what do you think? What if you hadn't done this test, and forget anything to do with this test?
You want us to hypothesize, don't you?
Would you think that graphene products and SiO2 products are an improvement over pure wax-based products in terms of paste wax and spray wax?
Depends what your metrics for improvement are.
Well, you tell me.
For durability is one obvious metric, and I would say
Yes, they are.
I'd say exactly. Well, certainly SiO2.
They are an improvement.
Yeah.
If you, I think the difference is going to be how much you like to take care of your car. If you like to take a classic car out for a quick drive around the roads once a week, get home, rinse it off, stick another coat of wax on it, put it back in the garage, no, there's no point, none whatsoever. Stick with the natural wax. If you want to actually get some performance out of it on a car that you're going to be using regularly, if you're going to be going motorway stuff, if you just want to give it a wax every few weeks, top it up, bit of spray sealant in between, absolutely go for more engineered versions.
So you think you're in the camp that the modern products outperform the old?
Oh, absolutely,
products?
they do. But I don't really think there's any question on that. If you give a chemist 5 ingredients, Carnuba, Montana, the beeswax, solvent, and say
Candelabra.
make the best wax you can, he's going to be limited.
Yeah.
If you say here's a chemistry set,
Yeah.
all of a sudden he's giggling on the floor.
Yeah.
And then there's
Because he can really go to town on these
Yeah,
things.
absolutely. Yeah,
There are rubbish ones out there, and there are ones that are worse than natural waxes.
Yeah.
But if you take the top end Carnuba wax versus the top end polymer wax, the top end polymer wax is going to outperform it in several ways.
Yeah.
But there's another topic here, which is why, and you touched on it. Why are you working on your car?
Touched
Why are you
anything.
detailing? Why are you detailing your car? What is the important thing to you? So straightforward metrics, durability. That's makes sense, and how often you're going to do it, and all the rest of it. But also, it's what is detailing for you? Is it getting a clean car, or is it having a nice, pleasant Sunday afternoon? And
That's kind of where you get is a cheaper wax better than a more expensive wax?
Yeah.
Now, again, if better for you means it only costs you 10 quid a pot, then yes, a cheaper wax is better. If your time is more valuable to you, for example, I find that we've mentioned them already, Swiss wax, things like Shield and things like that. Shield,
yeah, Shield's PTFE.
yeah, no, that's not a great example then.
Best of show.
Best of show then. They apply and remove far easier. If you leave best of show on there for an hour,
Yeah.
because you get called in on the phone,
Yeah.
it's still
fine.
going to remove.
They warn
nice
you not
and
to
easily.
do that on the label. They do not leave it for more than 10 minutes. If you do, it's fine.
Exactly. But they've put the time in to add ingredients and chemistry into it that
Yeah.
make them much more forgiving.
Yeah.
But again, that's the point of view of a professional detailer or part-time
Semi.
professional semi, because
Call
again,
me
it's
a
a process. So I'll go back into the mists of time, and I was at the NEC Classic, a long time ago and selling carskin products back before PVD, before the magazine, before everything. And we were literally explaining how there was a diminishing polish that was being sold and how you can do things in fewer steps, takes less time. And the guy, no word of a lie, turned around, and there were these two brothers, and they must have been in their 50s. And he turned around and he said, well, if I can do a car in half the time, what's my brother going to do? And it was literally, they do it together on a Sunday on their cars. For them, it was experience. So it wasn't about doing it quickly. It wasn't about that. It was about they want to do their cars and they want something. And this is the sort of thing where smell makes a difference. For a professional, does it smell? Well, if it smells horrible, fair enough. But generally speaking, it's not a huge consideration. But actually, if you're doing it for fun and you smell a passion fruit or kumquat or whatever you want to smell of,
okay, yeah.
It does make sense.
This is really reminding me two things. What Ian was saying, the car, the daily driver car, I want to put something down that is going to last me like 6 months to a year because I don't care about it and I don't want to be doing this again. It's a chore. It's just a dented up Golf and I don't care about it. But my BMWs,
M4 CS with the carbon ceramic brakes.
Thank you, and the carbon bits. I love.
Oh, it's not just an M trim pack.
I don't know.
Yeah, you do.
But I love getting like a Zymo Glacier or the Shoal Concept Vintage, which we got was a really good performing gloss wax, and it's an old school oily, buttery Carnuba wax that stinks of coconut, coca. Yeah, and it smells lovely. It's addictive. It doesn't last that long. It costs an arm and a leg. And you could say, you know, built hammer double speed, $14.99. Test them side by side, and it'll outperform it. But I still love this expensive wax, and I don't even know why. But it's probably because of what you just said. I love putting it down, and on a summer's day in an afternoon, I really like working on my car, and that is that side of detailing where you will pay more, but. That's something different, isn't it, to what this Megatest is doing? This Megatest is really... It's going into that area where is it all BS? Is it all BS? This drive to use new materials and
it's buzzwords as well. That's
yeah.
There is a slight other aspect to this as well. Is how much of reviewing is BS? It's kind of shooting ourselves in the foot slightly here, but we could end up with a scattergraph of results that actually say that no, actually they all do the same job.
Yeah. Well, but then also this is the same base wax formulation. So what we're trying to review here is something that's fundamentally very similar, looks identical, smells identical, seems to go on the panel identical, but has two tiny differences across it.
The way you applied it in your situation.
Yes.
And actually, if we had a scattergraph, and it was all over the place with results, I think the net result would be, is it worth paying extra for SiO2 or graphene? Answer, no. If there was a correlation in certain attributes, this one's easier to use, this one lasts longer, the answer could be, if you're looking for a wax that'll last longer, pay for, SiO2 or graphene.
Yeah.
If you're not, then there is no difference.
Well, we have to also remember we've got a organically backboned wax with oil in it here, which has all of the downsides of an organic product, where it's going to be broken down easier. And what Ian was saying earlier on, you take a modern product, a spray sealant, a siloxane water-based thing, you can spray it on your car and buff it, and it can last 6 months, and it's really rapid to apply. It doesn't have those vulnerabilities. So we might also say, well, there's no difference between graphene and SiO2, but it's only within the context of putting those materials in an organic paste wax. So that's important.
Yeah, I think there are two elements of that. One is we are testing waxes, and absolutely, because it might be that in coatings, which we're also doing some internal testing and stuff like that, it's a different story.
Yeah.
The other thing to note, and this is, so on the one hand, we've got, I wouldn't say we've got the reputation of graphene on our hands, but we certainly it's an important element. If we found that it was completely defective or whatever, it wouldn't be great news for graphene and those working around it. But first of all, is that we are using the graphene that we, at least from our research, we believe is to be among the best and most developed format.
Yeah.
currently available.
Absolutely.
Not to say in 2 years' time there won't be an improvement. So that's the first thing, is that we're kind of putting a mark in time. At this point, it is or is not useful to have in there, and also the fact that it is in a wax, and that's I think you've hit the nail on the head. But it brings up that interesting topic that we saw with SiO2. Originally, SiO2 was coatings, and then it started going to spray sealants, and now it's in shampoos. So maybe the test is saying that, well, in wax it's not, but as I say, maybe in a coating it is. So it's not. There's a lot at stake.
It'll be held in a coating. A coating will form a harder material which won't erode away as quickly. And we were talking about the wax eroding away and the solid particles of graphene coming out of that wax and leaving a hole behind. But then you guys were saying, but the size of the micronized powder graphene that you use is so small.
The platelets themselves.
It might not work like that, which is interesting, because another thing with me is I as a wax maker, I love to get that in. I've toiled with making waxes for a couple of years, and I experimented using micronized powders.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
Yes, I dabbled. I always get that.
Not.
I always try and get that in. It just makes me feel good.
I drank bleach as a child once.
Well, that's Button Moon's fault.
But the thing I learned, and I was told by the wax makers, is any micronized powder in a wax blend, whether it's fumed silica or graphene oxide, because it was around back then as well, or PTFE was the one I was using. Anything that you disperse, micronized powder that you disperse within a wax blend, is not going to help durability, because you're relying on the backbone wax. That's the material that's, the blend of waxes is your backbone, and this is just something in that blend. So in theory, this could influence perceived durability if the graphene is hydrophobic, but I don't think it is. The SiO2 I also don't think is hydrophobic. So I'm not sure if you're going to get any perceived durability increase by making the product more hydrophobic, unless you weren't using a micronized powder version of SiO2, sorry, like I said earlier on. You were using a polysiloxane blended in that can, as part of the actual backbone of the wax, then you might see more permanent results.
At what point does something become blended in, though? Because, with the graphene in particular, this is a suspension.
With the graphene, it can't, because it's a solid. But with the SiO2, if it's a fumed silica, then it's the same almost as graphene. It's solid particles in there. If it's polysiloxane, then it can be mixed into the blend. So it's not solid in there. It's a liquid,
How difficult is it to make a suspension from?
It's not difficult at all. No, there's lots of waxes that use
graphene. It's incredibly difficult, and that's where AGM had so much success, if you like. And they've not only found a way of dispersing it within one suspension, they've found a way of dispersing it within several types of suspension to suit several different types of product.
But in terms of making the wax, you just put the graphene in.
Yes, because they've already got it in the suspension that works.
Yeah.
So it's kind of already...
It's in a solvent system.
There's a fair bit. It's kind of on the surface that simple, but actually you've then got to think about what else is in your product and it interfering with the graphene suspension. For example, highly perfumed stuff doesn't apparently mix very well, doesn't go very well. It kind of breaks itself down. So you've got to, and then you've got to pick a certain sort of solvent for the whole solution as well. So it's not quite as simple as dribble a bit of this in and hope for the best. There's more.
That's how I used to make my waxes.
Yeah.
How's that wax business going?
It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. I'd use it on my body, not the car, though.
I remember now having the conversation when I was when we were putting together 14.
Yeah.
And I was putting together all the graphene article, and I was on the phone with John Hogg. And we were just mulling through some of the tech behind it and everything like that. And I was
got Google Translate on.
Yeah. I was kind of idly mulling away to myself, and I went, imagine if we took all of these waxes, made them all look the same, sent them out to people and just see what they got back blind. And there was a pause. And then there was a cackle. Oh, that's evil, that is.
It's good. It's a good way to do it.
The evil genius strikes again. So, that's an interesting thing. And as I say, the results in that will be out in issue 15, which and we'll have the waxes on stand as well at Waxstock and have stuff so you can come and have a play potentially. We're still not sure exactly what we can do on our stand, but because the mags come out after Waxstock, we will be able to sort of integrate something there.
This just made me think of something. Sorry. John Hogg made ceramic wax using true ceramic, didn't he? You know,
Yes.
Enigma, Angel Wax Enigma.
Yeah.
This isn't like an Angel Wax Enigma type wax.
There are similarities, but it is a completely unique wax in that the blend he's done for this is different, because the thing is that when you're making a graphene wax, ideally you want to be making it for their, I think it's Nebula or Dark Star, Nebula. They will be they're making everything as good as they possibly can for graphene, and that might make it unsuitable for SiO2 or for just a normal wax. So here the challenge for John was to make a base that was appropriate, was compatible with everything,
while still being a good wax on its
while
own.
still being good wax.
But the SiO2 wax isn't like some Enigma.
It's not something off the shelf for them, no.
No,
But it may share technology with Enigma in terms of the integration of SiO2.
Oh, okay. Because that was like a true. Remember there was only about 4 true ceramic waxes on the market, but
At
back
that
in the
time,
day,
yeah.
you had Enigma, you had Fireball.
Yes. Oh, Fusion.
Fusion. You had come on. You had Kamikaze, didn't you? Had one
Kamikaze collection, yes.
And there was
something.
one other one. There was a 4th.
It'll come to you at the most inappropriate moment.
Yeah, and what these guys had done is they blended ceramic coatings, or a component of ceramic coating, the actual the silane resin that's in a coating, into a wax, whereas the rest of them were just using other versions of polysiloxane
Or sprinkling SiO2 powder.
Exactly. So that was a question actually, is if this was using silane ceramic resin.
I suspect it will be.
Oh, that's interesting. That's going to change everything.
Be interesting.
Yeah,
I will confirm
so
it with John.
confirm that if it's a true ceramic.
Well, it's also, bear in mind, this is also a test of SiO2 just as much as it is graphene. It's just that graphene is the latest buzzword. And actually that brings us on to buzzwords in general. And, you know, I'm trying to think back. I think in the early days, when we're talking about late 90s, early noughties, although there were polymer waxes around well before that, I think that's when it started becoming cool, and things like super resin polish. What was that called before? It was called super resin. It was called something else. It had other names.
Silicon resin polish.
Silicon resin polish.
Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't have to change the abbreviation.
Is it silicon resin, or I thought it was acrylic? I don't know.
Bear in mind, they reformulated. I remember they reformulated. I think it was 2014, 2015. I remember there was an NEC show where I talked to.
I still haven't used their latest low dust formula because I got like a litre of it. I need to do a review of that. I'll go and buy some.
On that. But so polymer was a bit of a key word, but the industry wasn't big and it wasn't networked through Facebook and Instagram and all the rest of it like it is now. Then Carnuba, Nuba, however you want to say it, pronounce it. Nuba is cool.
Don't say Carnuba because you get your head bitten off by the wax makers, as I found out.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay.
Carnuba.
So there's Carnuba, and interesting. So let's look at Carnuba. Talking to wax makers, Carnuba is one of many waxes that goes in there, and it provides certain properties that other waxes can't, but it also lacks certain properties that other waxes have.
It's hard. It's hard. If you take raw Carnuba, it's like flakes of rock hard plastic or eggshell.
Oh yeah,
almost.
no, I've seen a brick of it. If you go to Dodo Juice, for example, they've got like literally the flakes in their showroom. So the point is that everybody got very excited about kind of, I've got to have a Carnuba wax, when actually some of the best waxes out there may contain Carnuba, but it's not necessarily the Carnuba that stands out. It could be the Montan, it could be the Candelabra. There are all sorts of different bits and bobs. So Candelabra, you know, what's it called? Candelia. All right, I got dyslexia. Take that.
Darling, like the candelier.
But my point is that actually Carnuba really was a buzzword. It was, it's perfectly adequate, but it's nothing exciting.
No, it is. It's not a buzzword. It's the good stuff.
It's
the good stuff. My favourite waxes are high Carnuba waxes.
Are your favourite shampoos high Carnuba as well?
And my favourite
the
chewing gum
buzzword
is
comes
too.
into it.
Does it? Look, most waxes use Carnuba as majority, then Montan wax in there, then a tiny bit of paraffin to give it a little bit of hydrophobicity. Now, some wax makers put beeswax in, but I found that make it all sticky because it's not.
You have to remove the honey first.
Yeah, I mean,
and the bees.
It just makes the wax sticky, and you can feel a crunchiness on the microfiber. And Candelia wax, people were saying, was really good to make the wax more removable and all this sort of stuff. I don't found it made any difference at all. So those three, Carnuba, Montan, and paraffin, they are used in virtually all, paste waxes that you can see the graininess in. And it's the non-organic waxes that people will started mixing in there. So, you can put PE waxes in there or other silicon wax resins as the
And you
the
get
first
that kind of
way.
hybrid feel to it.
Yeah, well, you can make a silicon wax, put a silicon wax in there, and that will be more hydrophobic. It will blend in with that other wax. Or you could put the key thing that's changed as well is to remove the oil, get rid of all of the oil. So if you don't put the oil in it, you get a brick that a hard brick that you can smack. But
Smacking bricks, good Sunday morning activity. Yeah.
a really good modern wax, like your colonites and stuff like that, they get rid of the oil so that when it cures, you get a complete dry cure on the panel, and then you buff it and you just leave the bonded layer on the surface. But those other waxes that got oil in them, it leaves a kind of a
residue,
wetter wax, and it will break down when you hit it with the detergent. So, what are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about, sorry, before you, can you put your trousers
talking
back
about
on, John?
tangents.
Stop touching yourself.
This is good stuff.
so-
This is reminding me of
but-
wax making. I'm going to have to go and buy all the kit again and start making
Because you keep on
waxes.
sniffing those graphene waxes.
Okay, so those
are
Carnuba, so that is, it's interesting because I think it was a bit of buzzword. I think part of my irritation with it though is to do with the whole percentages. We won't get into that argument, but
Yeah,
the whole
that's-
100% Carnuba. No,
Yeah.
it bloody isn't.
No, of course not.
100% of the wax that's in there is Carnuba, but that could only be 1% of the wax, maybe.
But the highest content Carnuba wax I've ever seen is that Shoal Concepts one.
Yes. Yeah, I
That
would agree
is
with
is just incredible. It's just lovely. But yeah, there was buzzwords going on because back in the day, paste waxes were the number one thing that people put on their cars if you go back 15 years. And you had companies like Swissvax taking it to the next level and saying we're using, kiwi passion fruit oil rather than just we're using a wax, and we're using T1 finest
Yes.
ebony, Carnuba instead of just saying we're using wax. So then I think other people started saying, well, we'll get, we'll have a bit of this. We're going to use strawberry oil in ours, and we're going to use this, and then everyone was doing it to try and get their,
to add marketing to
Yeah.
it, in other words, and I think
the craftsmanship in the making the wax. We're using this, but really, you could use sunflower oil, or what was the one that I used to use? Not sunflower oil. You can use all sorts of organic oils, really.
Yeah. They were basically turning a commodity, car wax, into a luxury.
Yeah.
And the marketing, and in fact, hell, Dodo Juice started up as a rebellion against that. The reason they're called Dodo Juice is because there's no such thing as the juice of a dodo.
Yeah.
And they were citing it, not just in car care, but in things like shampoo and stuff. You look at the back of a fancy pants lady shampoo, and it's got chemicals or names, branded, registered trademarks that don't mean bugger all. It's literally some sort of compound or whatever, but it's nothing that special. It's just they've called it, and I don't want to use one because A, I can't remember because not a lady, and B, they're probably Garnier or whoever would sue the tits off us. But the point is that
Not if you're not a lady.
there is a move. Sorry. The point is, so there was a bit of smoke and mirrors around it, but okay. So we talked about the Carnuba. What about SiO2? So in coatings, the interesting thing is, and we're seeing this, they're not even second gen, there must be kind of fifth gen coatings, where there are now the easy to apply coatings used by some manufacturers of stuff for dealer fit coatings, some for the home use coatings, which in terms of solids and stuff, they're pretty low.
Yeah.
But that base resin that is common with other coatings is still there. It is a genuine coating.
Yeah, not in all of them though. There's more resins in play now.
Yeah, and the amino something or other. I was talking to Lance over at Dual Ultra about theirs, and he was saying, look, it's not polysiloxane, it's this amino-based system, and it's just easier to put on.
The first generation of coatings, most of them were using a certain resin that's still used today, and coatings have exploded, and there's more players now, and there's more places to go. But it's still a bit of a mystery what's going on.
Yeah.
There's not that many people making coatings. But yeah, I mean, the point was about SiO2. When we went from Carnuba to SiO2 and all the things in between, every time a new technology came in, when coatings came in and SiO2 sprays came in, a portion of the market was that it was all BS, and coatings, you got the flamethrowers on them, you got you're whacking them with a hammer and they're not getting damaged or whatever. There was all that, and then there was all the skepticism, and then that skepticism phases out, and every brand offers it. A lot of the skepticism comes from brands that aren't on board with this and don't want to get on board, so they criticise it. Yeah. Other people listen to that criticism and repeat it as if they understand what's going on.
And you get a lot of armchair opinions.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not helped by the fact that with SiO2 as an example. So now I see very few people criticising coatings.
Yeah, it's accepted now because the new thing has come along. The graphene's come along, and the market will consist of people that move over and offer graphene products, those that don't want to, and then slowly more and more get on board, and everyone gets on board because perhaps the products do get better with time, like Ian was saying, even though it's very hard to measure. And then there's no scepticism around SiO2. SiO2 is great. Graphene is awful. Graphene will come in, everyone will offer graphene, and then it will be the next thing, kryptonite. And and who knows? Kryptonite may be better than graphene, and we'll be doing a test in 5 years' time on kryptonite waxes versus graphene waxes, and SiO2 will become will be the next Carnuba. It won't even be talked about.
Yeah.
But things do move on, and generally things get better. And the independent thing I've done on this is I questioned my patrons, my community, private patrons. Don't forget, you can sign up to the Patreon page in the link in the description. My patrons...
You sound lovely when close to the microphone.
Well, thank you very much. My patrons, I said to them, what do you prefer
Ian's
using?
looking awkward.
Paste waxes or SiO2-based spray products? And it was 65% SiO2-based spray products now.
Wow.
SiO2 sprays, which everyone was saying were BS 5 years ago.
But again, I think...
all based on very old water-based nanotechnology.
Well, again, I don't know. I don't know what's in. They vary from product to product, but I think of them as polysiloxane and water, and some solvent, and that's what's SiO2. That's the SiO2. But then there are some again like that will actually use micronized powders, and you'll even see it build up in the bottom of the bottle. And you have to give it a good shake. But there's not so many of those around now. But the bottom line is, if you ask people, they generally favour the later stuff to the older stuff, with about sort of 30% stuck on waxes, and I'm one of those 30% as well.
I was about to say, I am. It's like cars. Is that none of my cars have? I mean, one has cruise control, but it doesn't work, so that's fine. But I mean, they've got airbags. But this, I rented one with lane assist. And damn thing kept telling me off.
That's
when
lethal, that is, isn't it?
Yeah, and auto braking on the reverse.
Yeah.
So I'm just casually trying to run over a bollard, and it stops me.
But it turns you as well. I was driving a T-Roc.
Steady on.
It turns. If you have the lane assist on and you pull the thing over to the left, it tries to pull it back.
Yes. Oh, that sort of turning. Yes.
It did it to me, and I nearly stopped the car on the motorway and got out because I didn't know what it was.
Yeah,
I think Corsa B's used to do that with E-Pass.
Yes, true. The battery ran out, got heavier and heavier and heavier. But but the point is, so the vast majority of my fleet is 20 years plus, and I'd like it that way. But with your flashing new BMW and all that, that's got every last bit of safety and all the rest of it. It's got. I mean, it's an amazing tour de force. But I wouldn't. If you offered that to me or the monetary equivalent, I would take the monetary equivalent and put it in.
You like older cars? Well, so do I. But that car is not as I drive it with the traction control off. I get abuse for saying that, and not in the winter.
Hang on, but I've seen you driving on track on your track videos. You're terrible.
I know I am, yeah. But I like to just have all the traction control off and just put it in the most aggressive setting and just tear around in it. And it's quite a simple car if you do that. There is not that much electronic stuff going on apart from the brakes, and all the
It's
engine
not,
mappings.
it's not the indicators.
Not the indicators, yeah. But I also love all that mechanical stuff. That's why I was talking to James about all the fly-by-wire stuff. And
Well, I got my inlet manifold for my H6 there. I've been taking it apart, cleaning out my EGR and stuff like that. And I'm terrified.
That is part of it. Detailing as well is we tend to forget it's about the cars as well.
Well, I agree with you, but the interesting thing there is you could say, well, why don't you have modern cars like yours that's not going to break down? You don't have to spend a Saturday afternoon underneath it getting covered in 5x50 oil. But actually, I quite like doing that stuff. That's part of the experience. The fact it's broken down means I can fix it.
Yeah.
It's
Pull snails out of your inlet manifold.
I did. Under my inlet manifold, and I found the cap for the aircon, all sorts of things.
That's a different. But would be another great discussion for another time. The difference between the modern petrol head and the petrol heads of our generation. Our generation, I'm sounding like the old people. Back in the war, we used to take the cars apart.
Say that, Steve.
Yeah. But like, if something breaks in your car, the first thing our generation does is go and have a look and start whacking things and undoing things and googling what it could be to fix it, or getting the old manual out. The new generation now, it's straight down. The cars are all PCP, and they're
straight down the dealership.
It's all and no one does anything on the cars.
And when somebody's showing you the car, the first thing they go to now, and you see it in the reviews, is the bloody stereo system.
Yeah.
And I mean, back in the 90s, of course, we had big stereos and all that, but that wasn't, with a new car, you're not talking about the in-car entertainment. Yeah. We used to call it ICE, but apparently now that means internal combustion engine, which is weird because everything else is electric, apparently. Anyway, the point being is that what people look for in a car, I look for feel, speed, acceleration, wildness, all that kind of passion and stuff I can fiddle.
Yeah, the rawness, yeah.
Nowadays, they just want the tech. Oh, it can drive itself.
And it's all going to performance, 0 to 60 times. The car's getting faster and faster. We got like a new Audi out that does, an RS3 that does 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. And that's their entry-level performance car. Soon it's going to be entry-level performance cars going to be 2.5 with all these electric motors.
Yeah.
What's the point of having that sort of performance on the road? It's ridiculous.
That's what the average man in the streets, or woman, wants. They want something they can just get in and drive. They don't want something. They want something that's such high performance, but the manufacturers don't want them to be able to fiddle with it because it's such high tech. Would you want the average man in the street to be able to take apart your engine? How simple it would have to be for that, because don't forget, the average man in the street, his name's Duncan, and he's a fucking idiot.
Hang on, I've just realised I'm Duncan. I could take your. I mean, this is the thing. Is I think it's our priorities change. Again, it's the same thing with bloody car care.
Can you be a petrol head if you've never changed the oil on your car?
No, but you can be a petrol head and not having had an alpha. You're just a more solvent.
I don't know if you can. I don't know if that means you haven't had an alpha.
I've never had an alpha.
There you go. You're not a petrol head. Ian's a petrol head.
Yeah, but to be fair, both of us this week have had our cars apart. You had your bumper off, and the bumper on your Merc off, and yeah, it's a weird thing, and I think it's like car care slightly. It's journey destination. That's why ceramic coatings. We get lots of people who aren't into detailing, but they know they want the car ceramic coated.
Yeah.
They pay somebody to get it ceramic coated, and their car is easier to clean up for longer. And then there are people like us who like to get our grainy waxes out and start fingering our panels. Anyway, let us move on.
Yep.
We have got the 10 quick fire questions.
Okie dokie.
And the first of those is, what is your current car?
My current car is a BMW E36 328i Sport manual and the BMW F82 M4 CS, which is awesome. I love it, but it is brilliant.
It does look like a piece of kit. I'm not a BMW person, but I have
Say
to
kit.
Piece of kit, yes. Piece of kit. It's a anyway. So, what is the first car that you detailed?
The first car that I detailed, Jesus.
When I say detailed,
You
take
detailed
that with
Jesus' car.
Well, this is. Well, it depends what you mean by detail.
Well, what's
doesn't
it
it?
called?
Were there bloodstains at 10 and 2?
The Turin shroud on the back seat.
Mary Magdalene was not happy.
Well, I don't know what this goes down to the question of what is detailing. I really think detailing probably is the point where you can fully decontaminate and polish a car.
No, it's not.
No?
Detailing, and I argue
That's
this.
the hardest bit of it, isn't it?
Detailing is a state of mind. If you're cleaning your car just to make it cleaner, then you're washing your car, that's not detailing. If you're detailing because you're enjoying the process and you're doing it in depth and you're looking at all the details, then it's detailing. It doesn't matter if you're only doing a basic wash.
I don't even think, when I'm cleaning my
We've
car,
always
I'm
left
not
this up to the
I'm
individual
not,
guest to decide.
I'm not
Yeah.
looking
Stop
at it in
interfering.
depth. I'm just like
Sorry,
cleaning
okay.
it and hoovering it out and stuff like that. But when I get a car, say you buy a new car and you look at it and the paint's, knowing that you can feel the paint and it's all covered in contamination, getting the right light on it and seeing the swirl levels and thinking, I've got to cut this. This is going to, it's German. It's going to take 3 cuts to get this right. How much paint have I got on here? Going and getting the paint depth gauge out and measuring it. If you're doing all those things and then you're like, well, is this, should I go at it with wool to make it easier and then I'll finish it off with, a finishing polish and a soft pad? All of that is detailing. The opposition of not detailing is you get that car and you just wash it and you go and buff it with a wax or something or a hand polish and. Is that
Sure.
detailing?
I think opposite is just a bucket and sponge. I think even waxing a car, that
I think it sort of comes down to personal
maybe,
satisfaction
maybe.
level.
Yeah, I did this video. I mean, they
Yeah.
just published a video. This is what detailing is, and it was me and my friend Reg taking his rusty old 330 Ci and just messing around, cleaning it to hell and back and waxing it, and it was great fun.
What was the first guy you did like that then?
Oh, well, that would have been my first car, which I think was a Golf 2-litre gear.
a Golf gear.
Yeah, gear. They did a gear.
Oh, is it? Oh, is in Carmen gear that gear?
I'm not sure. I think
Because
it's
gear is
Gear was
normally a
Ford.
Ford.
Yeah, I know,
But gear is a designer, isn't it? They did the Carmen gear, which is an old V-dub.
It was a VW 2-litre 16 valve, and it had gear written on the back of it.
What generation Golf was it?
I think it's a Mark II.
Okay.
You're not being
think-
trolled by the Ford Club.
I don't know. This,
I stuck a badge on
it
there.
was a hand-me-down. It was a hand-me-down from my sister, and this car was rotten and rusting. It had an Alpine stereo in it. That when you used to the Alpina, when you or Alpine.
Alpine.
You put your foot on the accelerator and the stereo would speed up because there was something wrong with the wiring.
The stereo would speed.
Yeah, so it'd be like the Smurfs, or the
Well, that
Chipmunks.
makes sense. Yeah, it's just because the alternator's putting more
Yeah,
electricity in.
something
so
was
it's-
going wrong with it. That was my first car, and I suppose you could say one day I washed that and I clayed it, and this is many years ago, and I waxed it. That was probably the first car I detailed, but really, I
And
didn't.
where is it now?
Oh God, no! I blew it up. I was racing. I was racing a friend back, and he was in front, and he turned into his driveway at high speed and made the corner, and I turned in the Golf and didn't make the corner and went up a hill and smacked the underneath of the engine on a chunk in this gravel road. But the car seemed fine.
I think that's called sump scraping.
Yeah, and but the next time I
There are
drove it,
websites for that
the next time I drove it, the engine blew up.
because it had no oil in. Because you had oil in your sump.
No, I think I busted the oil pump. Yeah,
The sump,
Yeah, something busted. So
Okay, so quick fire round. What's your dream car?
my dream
This
car.
is not detailing related. Just your dream car. Full stop.
Yeah, because I've already got both my dream cars. The one I want is an E46 M3, and I'm not even going to say the individual bits I want because it's so hard to get. If I say it, someone else might be on the lookout for it, and I get less chance of getting it. So it's a certain colour, certain spec E46 M3 because it does everything. It's got the right amount of power. It's rear-wheel drive. It's got a.
But it hasn't got a V8 like the E90.
No, but it's got an engine that you have to rag, and it comes alive when you get into the high revs, and it keeps revving, and it makes this metallic rasp. The chassis on
The
it.
gearbox.
No, that's not the gearbox. That's the engine, and the chassis on it is amazing. If you put one round a track, the chassis is really good. You can hang the back out of it. It's got the limited slip diff, and you don't fight the back end of the car. It's just a really great all-round car, and the engine is solid. And I love that era of car.
Well, I have to say, while I disagree with that, wouldn't be. Let's say that wouldn't be my personal choice of car. Your explanation and justification of it is the best we have ever had on a podcast. Because most say, "Oh, my dream car's a Lamborghini because it's pretty," or something like that.
No, but
one that's a passion there.
It's the one that you wanted when you could grow, when you were growing up. And those cars came out, and I had them, E46s, no, E46 M3. But when it first came out, I could never afford it, back in 2000. And I saw it, and I just craved these cars. And they are, fantastic. And it's more about that. The modern cars, what they do is they can put more power into cars infinitely and then bring another car out that's going to be a bit quicker than the next one. They could do that for the next 50, 100 years. And they do it by making the car slightly heavier.
I think they've got about 8 years before it all has to be electric anyway.
They'll just make the cars heavier and they'll put wider tyres on them so they can use their power. So they can always just bring another generation of car out that's a bit faster than the other one. And the trap is all these people that are competitive don't want someone pulling up at the lights next to them with the latest model that's going to smoke them at the lights.
And that's true. But your line in the sand is E46. So
It is,
we'll leave it at that and ask you, how many buckets do you like to use?
One. I've talked about this on the channel. Whoever wants to use 2 buckets, good luck to you. But I think it depends on what you're doing with the car, doesn't it? If a car's coming and you're polishing it, then who cares if you're using 2 buckets? Get it clean and get it polished. If you're maintaining a car that's got immaculate paint that's been corrected and you like to use 2 buckets, go with 2 buckets, and clean your Mitt out. For me, my golden rule is when I go in and wash the car, I don't want any dirt on the surface, and I can tell straight away if I'm wiping the Mitt over it and it comes back black that I've not done a good job with my pre-wash, and I don't like to do that. I like to go in and feel like when I'm doing the contact wash, I'm cleaning a clean car. And then my single bucket isn't even dirty. So I just personally just use 1 bucket. I just really...
One bucket and 1 wash mitt.
Yeah, and it's a really controversial thing, and it always gets me in trouble.
I get 1 bucket with multiple wash mitts. That makes sense. If you have like 5 wash mitts and you just spread them around the car, and then you're not putting your because even if you've got 2 buckets, the wash bucket can still get dirty because you're not necessarily rinsing.
It's getting so hardcore. This is like, it's just you're going to once a year you're going to clay the car to get all the contamination off. So
okay, so. You are our first 1 bucket man. Yeah. Next question, and again, quick fire: ceramic or wax?
Wax.
Good man. No wrong answer. Ferrari or Porsche?
Porsche.
Interesting. There is a wrong answer here, and punishment. Subaru or Mitsubishi?
Mitsubishi. Yeah, you know what though? I don't really have any experience with either, and I have a soft spot for your car with the blown engine because I really liked it.
I gave you a bit of a ride in that one.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I thought it was a really, really focused car, like track focused, performance focused. All this tech in it, variable diff from the front and
proper tech. Not the stereo didn't work, but it was had and all sorts of things. Okay,
yeah.
So right, well, I suppose you kind of made up for it, but you still made the wrong answer. Flex or Rupes?
Oh, geez. This is easy, actually. For me, forced rotation, flex, free spinning, Rupes.
Good answer. Good answer. Your dream car to detail?
Oh, E34 M5, yeah. I've never done one, and I would love to do one, actually. I met someone, if you're watching, your name's Paul. I think it's Paul. It might be.
Even if you're not watching, your name's Paul.
I met a chap down at a Goodwood breakfast.
We don't have that kind of influence here.
You guys would have just died. This guy has got an E34.
Oh, boredom.
And it's the most concourse thing I've ever seen in my life. Low mileage in blue, amazing car, and I was chatting to him about it. Really, really lovely. I'd love to detail an E34, preferably one with really paint that can be really improved. So not the paint falling off, because a lot of them need resprays, but one that could be really improved. I would take my time and I would spend a good week on it happily.
That sounds like a Tinder advert.
It does, doesn't it? It does.
We need the Barry White music. Take my time.
No, it doesn't work.
Final question. And I think we might actually get a different... I don't know. Sunday drive or Sunday detail?
Sunday drive. Yeah. It's all about the driving the cars. The detailing is there to make you enjoy the cars more, but it's about the cars. And sometimes I think detailing forgets that. And people come up with all these things. I mean, I hear these things, John, you're an idiot.
I get that too.
Sorry about that, by the way. I was drunk.
You're cleaning your car in the wrong direction with your wash mitt, so you're going to put the scratches horizontal across the panel instead of vertical across the panel. There's all this detailing stuff that is just an absolute load of nonsense because it's too... No one can live their lives like that.
It's too anal.
Yeah, really ridiculous. And even the bloke saying it to me doesn't. He's just looking for
a way... for a fight.
And that goes on. And I tell you now, about half the people that watch my detailing channel take better care of their cars than I do, wash them more carefully, wash them more regularly. Detailing for me is an addiction and a passion, and that's why I got started with you guys, because you guys are just as addicted as I am. So it's about fun, enjoyment, and and answering multiple choice questions or 10 questions. It is. It's about the fun, isn't it?
It is. And I think that is a lovely place to wrap up. So thank you so much for coming up, John. As I say, we'll be continuing with the mega testing, and that will all be available to learn about in issue 15, and also come and see us at Waxstock. John, are you going to come to Waxstock this year?
Probably won't. It's like a 4-hour trip up and 4-hour trip back, but I might do. You never know.
Why not
I might
buy you a
surprise you.
helicopter?
I might surprise you, Bert. You never know.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good. And it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from Ian.
Goodbye.
And from John.
Howdy doody. Goodbye.